Okay, don't do that. Don't cough. Shit, I should probably not be chewing that. Ugh. Hello and welcome to Taking Stuff Apart, a new series that I'm starting because I really enjoy taking stuff apart. I decided to start this series because I got a new piece of tech the other day and was curious about what was inside. Unfortunately, when I looked online, I could not find a single video of a person taking this piece of tech apart. What is it, you might ask? Well, let me show you. The Samsung SmartThings Cam, the latest and greatest in what you might call overpriced home security. Now, I actually have my own security cameras that I've kind of DIY'd with Raspberry Pis. I basically just followed a Linus video on how to do it, which I'll throw in the description if you're interested. Or if you're super interested, let me know and I can kind of go over what I did and the few tweaks that I made to the system to personalize it for my own home. Either way, the point is I don't really have a dire need for these things, especially because they're basically just indoor security cameras, which I wasn't too interested to have in the first place. But I recently bought a brand new phone from good old Samsung, and they decided to give me a bunch of free stuff, so I wasn't going to say no. Either way, with a couple of DIY security camera projects already under my belt, I was pretty curious to see what was inside of this little guy. They're relatively easy to take apart, and since I couldn't find anybody showing us how to do it, I figured I would just do it. This ain't an unboxing video, so here it is. It's already out of the box. This thing is empty. First things first, let's go over the tools you're going to need for this project. First thing you're going to need is a very tiny screwdriver like this. I have one that's flathead and it's reversible for Phillips. Basically on the inside all you'll need is the Phillips, but I'll show you what I use the flathead for momentarily. I also recommend a little pair of tweezers or little pinchers like this. These are in extremely fine point sharp ones. Let me see if I can get that to focus. There we go. You can see they're a little bent because I don't take care of them, but they're extremely sharp, so be careful. But having that fine control will be nice for the tiny components inside of this thing. And lastly, a small pair of needle nose pliers. They're really only good for one thing, and it's part of the process of putting back together actually. So you might get away with not having them, but they are pretty useful for one specific step that I'll be showing you in the end. Okay, so here's the little guy right here. First thing that we're going to do actually is slide off this bottom plate. It's meant to do this. This is easy for mounting it, and they also make you do this to get the QR code that's underneath. So the first thing we're going to do is take this little stand arm off so that it's kind of out of our way and we can just be working with the camera housing. So if you fully tilt it up like this and then turn, you can already see a Phillips screw holding in the basically the top of the neck of this little stand. So we're going to take our Phillips screwdriver, just get in there and unscrew that first screw. And this is why it's good to have real tiny little grabbers like this, especially ones with a bend. Makes it easy to grab stuff like this sometimes. We're going to put that off to the side. I recommend having something so you don't lose stuff. I usually use a little magnetic metal cup. I'm not using it right now because I have a pretty clear table, but normally my workspace is a little more messy and I'll use a little metal cup with a magnet to not lose anything. Speaking of losing something, I definitely dropped a little plastic piece, so luckily we don't need that for a little while. Whoops. Anyway, once it's unscrewed, you can kind of see in there, I know it's dark, but you can see in there that metal bar is where the whole thing turns. So you can kind of force it to turn enough so that this will kind of wiggle out. You gotta kind of work with it a little bit, but eventually it will pop right out. Ta-da! Now, the actual camera, like main housing and everything. When I first did this, I noticed this little sticker here peeling this sticker off reveals 4 small holes that are above 4 little soldering pads that I will show you once we get it apart. But taking this sticker off is actually not necessary for disassembly. So I'm not going to do it right now. I do want to show you the solder pads that are underneath because I'm actually not sure what they're for. I want to kind of ask you guys, maybe you know a little bit more than me. But at the very least, we don't have to take this off, so don't make the same mistake I did. If you don't want to take that off, you can leave it looking nicer than mine and just not take that sticker off. Ooh, excuse me. Whew, sorry about that. Had a big dinner today. Anyway, you'll notice there's not really any screw holes or anything like that to get us started. This small hole right here is for the power adapter, and this is usually covered up by the arm, but even as we get it uncovered, there's not really anything to interact with. Let's see if I can get this to focus. There we go. See? You kind of see some metal stuff, but nothing really that useful, especially for our purposes of trying to get the thing apart. So what you actually have to do is get in between the black plastic and the white plastic here and pry off this entire faceplate. This is what I use the flathead for. Now, here's my disclaimer and warning. If you can see on the top here, there's a little bit of cosmetic damage on the plastic. This is because I used a hard metal flathead screwdriver to undo it. It's kind of hard to see. It's very fine, very tiny cosmetic damage. You know, from a distance, you're never going to see it, and for the average person, you might not care. But if you do care about keeping things pristine, or if you're doing this for someone else and you want to leave no trace of repair, use something softer, like a small plastic tool made for prying things apart. But I'm just going to be using this hard metal flathead because I received this camera for free. Don't really care that much about it. So here we go. There we go. It's pretty tough at first. You're going to feel like you're breaking it. It's going to feel kind of scary. But get in there and really pry it up. Whoop. And scratch the plastic off a little bit. There we go. Yeah, you really got to force your way in there. It's made to do this, though. All these clips around the edges here are what hold it in. So that's the only way to take this faceplate off, really. Ta-da! And you can kind of see, as you get all the clips unengaged, just be careful to not yank it apart because there is a ribbon cable connecting this front plate to one of the main boards here. You can see this, let me see if I can get it to focus, this little black piece right here. If you can get something underneath, small, get something underneath there, and lift it up. Kind of pry it up like that. Once it's facing up like that, as you can see, the ribbon already kind of slid out. It's nice and loose, and the ribbon pops right out. Great. So what we can do, put this off to the side. There's a lot more to do in here, but we'll get to it soon. Just for the sake of really taking everything apart, we can take this little board off of this front plate here and check it out. So for me, switch back to the Phillips, or just grab your Phillips screwdriver and undo all of these screws. There we go. And now you can just kind of lift this right off. And there you go. Pretty sure that this is pretty much just microphones on little like light sensors. These are our infrared lights right here, and then this is an indicator light. As you can see, you can kind of tell where things shine through the front plastic plate. That's just like that. So there we go. We can now move that off to the side as well. Careful, as always, with your tiny little screws. Don't want to lose anything. Now, we can keep going deeper because there's quite a few boards in here. They designed it, you know, in such a way to make it nice and compact, so it's a real thick boy, but it's not too wide. So with this I like to leave this in here just so I know which side's which and I don't have to think about it. Obviously it's labeled pretty big and obvious, but just to make absolutely sure I'm not going to make any mistakes, I'm just going to leave this part of the ribbon cable plugged in. So the next part, what we want to do to kind of the next thing we want to do is get these wires out of the way, these kind of yin-yang black and white cables. They're for our Wi-Fi antennas. As you can see, they're kind of lining the side of the casing there and there. That's what those wires are connected to. So we're gonna go ahead and just get those out. They pop right out, nice and easy. Just kind of disconnect them. The way they're curved, they might stay in the way. You can kind of pull them out, but yeah, if you don't want to bend them too harshly, they might keep popping in anyway, which isn't that big of a deal. Just as long as they're not attached, they can kind of stay out of your way. Now it's time to go back with an old Phillips screwdriver, and we've got 2 screws kind of diagonally opposite of each other on this board. So we're gonna unscrew each of those, and we can lift that board out after we're done. There we go. So what we can do now that those 2 screws are removed, this is another reason why these having a bend isn't really nice. I can kind of get this underneath and start to lift this board next. And one thing you will notice as you start to lift this one, this camera lens is not attached to this board. There's a big old hole in it, so it's just going to lift right over. The camera lens is going to remain. So this entire board just lifts out like that. And you'll feel a little resistance pulling it out because you've got this plug here to plug into the board below, which I'll show you in just a second. But for now, we can put this board off to the side because it's now out and out of our way. So you can see, this is probably the more central main board right here. And this is the little plug that top board was plugged into, this little slot. Now there are a few things at play here. This is the board that has this big lens array attached to it. So this whole piece will come out when we get to it. This little camera thing has a little power cable that can just kind of stay where it is. We don't have to take this apart right here. At least not yet. We can just leave this on for now if we're just trying to remove this board. And this little power cable comes to this board as well. From beneath it, you can kind of see the slot that it goes through to come up here. We don't have to take this off right away because it gives us plenty of slack, so we can actually leave this plugged in as we start to take this board's screws out. So, as you can see, this board actually has 4 screws holding this one in. So we're going to have to unscrew all 4 of these to be able to lift this board out and get it out of here. So let's just start unscrewing those 4. Boom. So there's our 4 screws. Keep them together. I'm going to put them off to the side. And now that they're out, this one is admittedly a little more tricky to get out of the enclosure here. As you can see, this little screw post goes through the board. Let me see if I can get a closer shot so you can see what I'm talking about. This plastic post goes through the board, through a hole in the board, so we kind of have to lift it and slide it out. It's also pretty formed to like these ridges, the kind of ribs of the enclosure, so you can kind of see cutouts and how it's very tightly formed to the edges, especially right here. It's very snug on this rib, so you want to get something under there that you can lift as directly up as possible. Again, why these bendy little pinchers are nice. Pinch them together, try to get under there and pry it up. There we go. Once you get a little bit of give, try pulling from the other side so you're treating it nice and even everywhere. Once it's loose enough, you can actually grab this little lens array from the sides. You obviously don't want to touch the lens, but grab the sides. And once it's nice and loose, you can kind of lift the whole thing up, pushing the Wi-Fi wires out of the way, and there you go. Now don't pull it too hard because remember we are still attached. But like I said, we have enough slack to kind of get it out of the enclosure, and now we can pull this thing out. Now you don't want to just kind of grab this and yank on it. I guess you could get away with that, but you don't want to damage anything. So if you can, get a tool like these in here and pull on the little plastic part. That's what it's there for. Ta-da! There we go. Once this is disconnected, you're completely free from the enclosure. And you can look on the back of this, there's 3 other slots as well. That's another reason there's so much resistance pulling this one up, because it was basically plugged into that board on the bottom. But there you go. This board is taken off. We will come back to this at the very end to see how this lens thing comes off. But for now, we can just put it off to the side. As you can see, now that we've got that board out of the way, there are 4 little holes in the plastic here. And on the very other side of this is that little sticker I mentioned earlier. These are the holes that are right above a couple of soldering points on that main board. And we'll show them to you later. We can kind of get into it as we take a closer look at that main board. But for now, let's finish pulling stuff out of this little enclosure, huh? Now this bottom board, once again, only has 2 screws, just like the first one we took out, basically diagonal from each other. But this one is also pretty snug in with the shape of the casing. As you can see, the board has cutouts for, you know, all these little screw posts and stuff like that. So it's got a nice little snug fit down in there. What we're gonna do is unscrew those 2 screws and then kind of go from there. Great. Now that that's out, we're gonna do a lot of the same stuff. We're gonna take our little bendy pinchers here, kind of get under and kind of apply some upward force to kind of wiggle it out of its little enclosure. So we're gonna get underneath here. Not getting anything there. Let's try this. Might be a really good angle. There it is. We're getting some give here. It's moving a little bit. Like I said, this part's kind of tough, so they are snug. You don't want to force it too hard at the risk of snapping something or breaking something. But you do want to kind of get under there and lift enough for the whole thing to move. And you can wiggle it out at that point, and there you go, boom. Now we're loose enough where I can just grab it and pull it right out. Ta-da! This board right here, that's where our little power plug goes into, as you can see right there. Boom. So there we go. That's the last board taken out. All that's left is a little metal plate here. Looks like basically like a sticky heat sink, as it looks like it lines up with this chip right here. So we can slap that back on when we put it on there. But now this board is done, so we can set this off to the side as well. Actually, really quick before we go, I already pointed this out. This is where our power plug goes. But this is a tiny little button. I don't know if you can hear it click. Maybe if I move it to the microphone. Yeah, I think you heard that. Anyway, that little button right there sits on top of that. You see that cross? Let me point it out, actually. This little cross thing here sticking up, that's a button on the back of the enclosure. So when you press that button, it presses that tiny button on the board. So yeah, just thought I'd point that out since I have this one. There's not a lot to look at on this board, so we're not going to come back to it until it's time to put it back together. But yeah, there's a little button right there. Just thought that was fun. So moving that off to the side, all we're left with is this enclosure. Just for the sake of finishing things off with this, I don't really feel like sliding these antennas out. They're just nice and snug in there. You could probably lift up on this plastic and kind of peel this off. If anything, they're probably stuck in there too with some glue. I mean, that's how most laptops are done as well. So I'm just not going to do it. But out of curiosity, let's take off this metal bit in the bottom here and see what's up, because I'm thinking this is a speaker by the holes here, because I know this has two-way audio, so I'm assuming this is going to be the speaker. Little speaker module. Cute little speaker module. I also like keeping my screws in groups, just in case. I mean, all these little PCB board screws looked the same to me, but just in case they aren't, I keep them in groups. These were the 4 for the main board, 2 for the last board that we just took out. So I've been kind of keeping them separate so I know what went where. And I'll keep this last group of 3 together as well so I know it's for this weird funky metal bit. So with that, let's see if that little metal plate just kind of lifts out of here. And it does. Ta-da! There we go. So it looks like that screw kind of went into the metal arm that holds in the that holds the neck, that basically holds the entire thing. This supports the weight of the entire unit right here. Just kind of screws into the plastic. Looks like there's another screw to kind of take this entire metal assembly out. But we're not going to do that. We'll just leave that in there. Same with this whole speaker module. Actually, since the screws are out, I'm thinking this is going to just kind of wiggle out as well. Oh, it feels sticky. Yep, I didn't take that out before. So it definitely was sticky. See if I can get it to focus. That was sticky in there, but I think that is a little cute little speaker module. Okay, let's just pop that back in there. We don't need to do anything with it. But there you go. Aside from some, little external things, little speaker in our Wi-Fi antennas, this is now a completely empty enclosure. And we pretty much have taken the whole thing apart. Now that we've got the whole thing taken apart and displayed nicely, let's take a little peek at the main board with the camera lens array. Maybe even take that thing off and see what we can do with it. So, first off, the one thing I want to point out are those soldering pads I kept mentioning before. There they are in all of their glory. You see those little bad boys? Let me turn it this way so you can read it without having to flip the screen. I don't know what these are for. 12 volt in, I'm assuming, is like a power thing. The other ones say USB, but I don't know what DP3, G3, or DM3 means. I don't know what they'd be used for. There's nothing on the other side, so they're just kind of there. And like I mentioned, they line up with these 4 holes that are covered with a sticker. So it seems to be for some sort of non-consumer application, because the average person wouldn't get in here, take off that sticker, thread some wires through those holes, and then solder them to these pads. But I wonder if you did that, what they'd be for. So, if you have any ideas, or if you're just really experienced with little PCB boards and stuff like this, let me know, because I'm really curious. I would like to kind of hack these and be able to use them through my own software, or Motion iOS is what I use for my cameras. If I could use these through that system, that'd be great, because I really don't want to continue using the Samsung SmartThings like platform. It's very controlled and kind of scammy. It's like buying a Ring camera or any of those others, because they just charge you for storage and monitoring when I could just set up a system myself. But anyway, back to the board. These 2 screws on the back are what we're looking at next, because they're the ones that hold in this little camera array. So we carefully unscrew them, and I can already feel it giving, and there it is, it's off. So now let's get this out of here. Ta-da! It looks like that is just a sensor right there. This is just like a lens. It's basically all it is. You can kind of see through it. I mean, it's reversed, but hey, look at that. So let's put this bad boy back on. So it always makes me nervous when it's off. I don't know if I'm damaging it or not, so yeah, we're just gonna put that back on. Not too tight, just nice and snug. Well, there you go. That's how you completely disassemble a Samsung SmartThings Cam. If you've been following along this whole time, stay tuned. I'm going to put it back together pretty quickly for the most part, but if I do think of something specific about the process of putting it back together, I will stop and talk about it a little bit. What's really nice is, since everything's nice and fitted, everything just kind of falls back into place the way it's supposed to, making it super easy to just reassemble. Well, definitely wasn't recording, so that was dumb. Alright, now that this is there, we'll get this guy going. It's always good to remember which way is which, but you can see these cutouts are unique, so it would probably be hard to put it in if you did it upside down. But here we go. These clips are facing up because they plug into the main board. So let's go ahead and carefully slide this bad boy in here. Okay, it definitely feels like it's getting caught on something. I think the hole is not quite lined up. So what I'm gonna do is kind of stick this through here and kind of help guide. There it is. Kind of guide the hole here. Let me see if I can get that focused. I stuck this through here and kind of guided the power port into the hole of the casing, and the board kind of fell into place once I did that. So it's nice and secure where it's supposed to be. Now we can get the screws in this hole here and this hole here. Okay, there we go. Next, we're gonna get this main middle board. You can see the three kind of plug-in slots, the three little lifted things here, and there. So you can see kind of a mirror. See, there's one on this side, one here, two on that side, two on that side. So obviously it's gonna go whoop, bunk. The biggest thing when putting this one back in, though, you just want to watch out for this hole right here. This is the kind of cutout for this plastic post. So you kind of want to make sure you're sliding it straight down and kind of watch it as it wiggles all the way down. But what I will do is take this little plug here and plug it back in. Now, if you don't remember which way this plugs in, I will show you a little tip on how I remembered. See those little metal parts? You can see the shiny from the top. That is the top. Boom. The other side does not look like that. That side, that you can see the shiny, you see the metal shining through the top, that is the top. So keep that facing up. You grab your board. This is facing up for the board. You plug it in just like that. Push on the plastic. Again, you don't want to push on the wires or anything. You push on the little plastic head. It gets nice and snug in there. We're good to go. Now you want to be careful when putting these in. I mean, obviously get it lined up and as you can feel the screw bite, you're good. Don't tighten these all the way down. If you tighten one down too much, and I'll push on it just to demonstrate, the whole board will kind of shift unevenly like an uneven table. I've got 3 of the screws so far. I've got one last one to do on this main board. Let's pop that in there. But again, not all the way down. But once you've got them mostly screwed down and all the way in, you can slowly go around. Just start on any of them. Get it kind of all the way tight, but don't really crank it. Go across. Do the same thing. So it's kind of snug, but not all the way cranked. Same thing here. Just to keep the board nice and flat and you don't have anything too tight or making it uneven or anything like that. There you go. And now once you've got it like that, you can go around and crank them a little bit if you just want to make sure it's super secure. Do that one again. That way it's all the way down. Diagonal across. Tighten this one down. Oh, that one's already pretty snug. Don't want to over tighten. Once they're all four nice and snug, you're good to go. We can move on to the last one. Easiest thing to remember with this one, again, we've got another one of these little slots, I guess, little expansion card type thing. That's gonna plug into that slot right there, so we know that it goes this way. The other big thing for this one, obviously, is the big hole in the middle. This is just gonna go right over the lens array, so keep the cords out of your way and just kind of lightly drop it in there. This is the top one, so it's just gonna hit some plastic lifters and kind of fall into place there. We just got two screw holes, one here, one way down here in the bottom. We're gonna throw our screws in there and then we can continue on. Get that nice. You don't want to crank them too hard, just like the rest of them. Just make sure they're nice and snug so it's secure. Now we can finally get our yin-yang Wi-Fi cables connected again. So this little guy right here just connects on that little button. It just kind of plugs right in. Super easy. And we'll kind of reach it over there. Kind of hard with my big meat hands, but I need to be able to push it down. So I guess we'll try to do this. They're nice little grabbers. Get it in position, and then just boom. Nice and secure. You can push down on it to make sure it's really in there, and there you go. So once it's on there again, you can kind of push on it and it won't move unless you really pulled on it to unplug it. But once it's in there, it's pretty secure on its own. And boom, there we go. So before reinserting this ribbon cable into here, we're gonna get this screwed back on the faceplate, like so. Let's flip this bad boy over. I can tell the top because it's where I scratched my stupid little protective plastic, but if you want to tell the top from over here, you can see these little V patterns, these kind of V shapes at the top, almost like a crown. That's the top. So this is the top here. So if that little crown shape is the top, you can place it down like that, and then just line up the letters. Top goes down this way and just sits like that. And then we can get our 4 screws and our 4 screw holes right there. Great, now that we've got that going, got the tops ready to go. So now all we need to do is slot this ribbon cable back into its little slot here. So just make sure, let me see if I can get it focused. Got your little latch pulled up. There we go. See, it's kind of flapping around. Got it flapped up a little bit like that. And take your, this is kind of tough, that's why these are nice as well. Take your little ribbon cable and slot it in. It's going to slide in right under this little white part, this cream white piece. So it's easy if you kind of angle this part and then get it lined up so that you can just kind of, come on, there we go. This is not the easiest part, especially trying to do it on camera, so bear with me. I kind of get a good grip and, oh, almost had it there. There we go. Kind of slides in once you've got it in position. Carefully make sure it's all the way in. It's kind of hard to see, but make sure it's all the way in and push the little latch forward. See if I can show you what I'm talking about. Now that it's slotted in, that white part's pretty much up against the cream. That's all the way in. And then the little black plastic lever type mechanism right here, this long black piece. Do this long black piece right here. Pushed all the way down, flat, and that's what kind of holds the ribbon in place. So with that, once everything else is all set, then you can just carefully bend the ribbon cable and the whole thing, kind of line up the hole with the lens array, make sure you've got that lined up right. And once you've got it nice and lined up, just push till the little clips start clipping in. There you go. You'll hear some loud pops and clicks and stuff like that. But once you've done that, you've got the assembly all put together. Ta-da! Now, this is where the small needle nose pliers come in. The only thing that they're really good for in this project is this bar. This bar, it's hard to see in the light because it's the only part that's dark on this entire white enclosure. But this little bar is really hard to move when it's not attached to the neck. Like, you can't really get your fingers in there, and even if you could, there's a lot of resistance. Like, this thing is pretty tough because it holds the entire thing in one position when you set it by hand. But when you have the leverage of the entire neck, you know, you can more easily turn it, but just getting your fingers in there and doing it, almost impossible. So, pliers, you can reach in, pinch it like so, and then turn it to your fancy, however you need to kind of wiggle the neck back in there. So I usually try to get it at like a 45-ish because this little peg right here will fit into this little hole on the neck. And it, let me tell you, is a pain in the neck to get the thing back in. So make sure it's at enough of an angle for this to kind of wiggle in, which I actually already did. So 45 is pretty good to get it wiggled in. Now, this part is going to be hard to show, but you can see there's a hole in the center of that little metal bar. That's where our screw goes through and screws into the neck on the other side. The only other thing we need to do is add our little plastic thing. So a little plastic cap makes it nice and round. So either way, you can kind of see how we're going to have to drop it in there just right. Boom. There we go. See how it kind of lines up in there, and it can move around a little, but try to get it lined up properly. There you go. And now that hole, granted that it's lined up with the hole beneath it, is where we're going to put this nice extra long screw into. So grab this by the neck. Again, another benefit of the bent nature of these things, that little curve in the pinchers, lets me really get in there and drop the screw where I need it. So we're going to kind of go here. This is going to be hard to do and show you, but here we go. Boom. There it is. And if it drops in that far, like it just did, that should hopefully be through both holes and right up against the other side of the neck. So, at this angle, we still can get our screwdriver in there. So we're going to try and do that. We're going to get it in and start twisting this, see if it bites. Hopefully it will. And this, you're going to have to wiggle around and really try to find the right place. Like I said, this one's kind of tough. You need to kind of work on wiggling it around up and down, left and right, just to get the screw through both holes properly and then biting into the neck the right way. Which, once you do, you can feel things start to get a little more secure. And I think I'm close. And you can keep trying to get it in there. But if it feels loose at all, if it's moving around like this at all, it's not right. Something's not going properly. So what you want to do is keep messing with it, see if you can get it tighter in certain positions. And once you feel it start to go right, things will kind of get tighter and more put together. See how it's getting a little more snug and uniform. Keep doing that until you get 100% secure, which looks like I just did. So that takes a little bit of playing with, but as you do it more and more, you'll get more used to it and you can feel it. So once it's on there, it won't wiggle anymore. It's really nice and solid once you've got that going there. So there we go. The last step obviously. I mean, this is neither here nor there, but if you're going to put the plastic base back on, just get it lined up and go click. Just line up, click. Ta-da! And now we've got a reassembled camera. There you go. We've taken apart Samsung SmartThings Smart Cam, or SmartThings Cam, Smart Cam, SmartThings, Smart Samsung Smart Cam. That's how you take it apart. Nobody helped me, so hopefully I can help somebody that needs to do that for some reason and searches on YouTube Samsung SmartThings Cam Teardown or Take Apart or Disassemble and finds nothing but a bunch of reviews and other garbage like that. Now, a few parting words. If you know anything about the little soldering points that are behind the sticker on the back of this unit, what they might mean, I'll show them again right now. I'm really curious what they could be used for. I bet maybe it's some professional usage or like some sort of like testing thing maybe. They've got a little thing that just kind of pokes in. I don't know. But it's interesting, and if it would help me kind of hack them or use them in some other fashion, that'd be really great. If you're still here, thank you for sticking with me. I like taking stuff apart. It's really fun. I'm not a professional by any means, but I do like taking stuff apart and seeing what's inside. Doing really easy, rudimentary repairs if needed. It started with building PCs, which are just Legos for adults. Then I've done a few laptop repairs here and there, and I just like taking stuff apart. And when I found that there was no video on how to take this apart, I just figured I'd fill that void. Well, at any rate, if this video helped you in any way, or you just enjoy this type of content and want to see more, let me know by clicking the like button down below. If you have suggestions on things you would like to see taken apart next, also let me know. If you have any information on how to use these things in a better way, kind of hack them, or if you have any ideas what those solder points might be for, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing and clicking the little bell icon so you're notified whenever I post a new video. I primarily cover VR gaming content, but I've been branching into other gaming content as well, and now, apparently, I'm going to be taking apart electronics. I'm also in the process of creating another short film that will be coming out possibly by the end of the year, and if not, very early next year. So if you're interested in that, maybe you want to subscribe and just be notified when that finally releases. At any rate, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Peace. Okay, time to get up.